But I think that's actually really fascinating, the serendipitous kind of nature of it. But even kind of in the early on, when you were deciding that nonprofit or the direction, obviously kind of you spend your time in college really hyper focused on that. How do you decide, or how do you kind of focus on, this is where I want to be, this is where I want to be, and then you almost have this L shape that goes in a different direction. How did you kind of process that, or do you remember that time kind of going through that? And was there anything that you might advise students who might have to make that similar shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the advice I would give, if it's worth anything at this point, it would be that there's like sentiment I've started saying to mentees and places where I get asked the question, which is basically learn to say yes. Be open-minded to opportunity all the way through. And so if opportunity knocks at your door, say yes and give it a shot, and let it lead you a little bit through what I think of in a career as much more of a jungle gym than a ladder. So let it lead you through the twists and turns of places where serendipity meets skills, meets opportunity in the moment, that if you say yes to, you may unlock and open all kinds of potential. And so whether that is yes to a move to a different office. So I had a bunch of friends who moved to our London office, for example, when it was open, and then started having international experiences. And they are being really thankful now across the course of their career lifetimes, like what they're eligible to do in global organizations. Or saying yes to a department that you couldn't imagine yourself in otherwise, but there's a need for your skill set in that department. Or yes to a different type of organization or project or skill set that somebody else sees in you, a mentor or a manager or a company. Just say yes, lean in and find out where it goes. I think there is little or at least less value in believing that it is supposed to be a linear ladder upwards that goes one step to the next without all kinds of opportunity coming, from left and right turns, those L shapes you mentioned.
And I really like that. And I think even at that point, right, I guess that was your motto going through and even switching over. 'Cause I'm guessing that you didn't anticipate being in a soon to be public company in the law space selling these kind of tickets to different executives, correct?
Absolutely not. You think about, I mean, how did I wind up there? And then how did I wind up in all the things that came to be? And it was really about being in a room where you were known for doing high quality work. So working hard, there's no replacement for the basics. You absolutely have to show up. You have to put in your full time, effort, energy. You have to learn the skill sets of those jobs. And so, but then once recognized for being able to do that by some leaders and then asked into these new opportunities, say yes, follow the path, go forward, because you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know what opportunities are going to come from it.
And actually, if I can hop a bit into the idea of education, because I think you've got some really interesting philosophies there from that. You talk about skills and like learning different skills. And so is that really like a great way to think of it? Like you kind of, again, like put together product, operations, sales, and by kind of rounding yourself out, that's how you knew you were kind of ready for that next step. And then do you think that that's really a really key focus area for students today is a skill acquisition before going into the work world?
I think there's multiple components to that. One, I think skill acquisition is definitely something we all as lifelong learners should pursue. So I think that the skills that you need on day one continue to grow and change and morph and evolve as the technology around you. As when I used to talk to sales audiences more often, I would say, when my original sales jobs had things like, MapQuest printed out directions. And we got our call list on an Excel spreadsheet with like their phone numbers like typed in. And
The
we
Thomas guides, we had to look through the
people.
maps at the different squares to see where to go.
Yes. And so you're talking about, think about how technology changes and the tools change and the needs. So today you probably wouldn't have much luck reaching an executive by like calling their landline phone in an office, and trying to reach them. They're just very different aspects today. And so you've got to evolve with the process and the time and the tools that are there. So keep adding to your skills. It's not a finite, get it done. And that's where what you said is, do you need to acquire those skills and then do the job? And I would say you can't think of it like that. Start acquiring skills in as many as you can and get a job and keep acquiring skills, and have these two be positive momentum for one another, where you are better at your job every day because you have new skills and you're open to learning. And then you also are learning and eligible for other jobs you're not yet doing because you've gained more skills. So for example, I went back in that not long after that chief of staff role, when I went on to the new product development role. And part of that role, I did a true MBA that was labeled an MBA for non-finance executives. And so it was an executive program that was a high intensity, short-term program that was in person, because this was before online classes were as available.
Before Straighterline came out in force.
Yeah, it was before. I mean, it would have been nice if it would have done this way, but no, I had to fly to Chicago for it. And it was one of those things where what was happening in the business is that we were looking at acquisitions, and I didn't have the skill set to read a balance sheet the way other people in the room did, to really be able to evaluate a company that way. And so went back through that program, jumped much further forward than I ever would have sort of on a day-to-day, on the job training aspect of it, in learning the vocabulary and the methodology. But at the same time, I was doing a real life job where we were evaluating companies for acquisition at the same time. And so there was, learn the method, apply it the next day at work that was happening, that I think really those two things added up to something greater in the end.